Hello guys, TKG is here for your comfortable LostArk life. In this video, I'd like to cover the newly released class Soul Eater. As the LostArk guy was asked about the build of one of his Soul Eater's engravings, so I thought it'd be great to share some of the build for your LostArk journey. And maybe you could use this video if you are actually playing the game in KL. Now follow me, I'll show what you need. Before I start this video, one thing you gotta know, this video is from the KL server. And of course, it is based on the KL statistic and common experience right now. As the LostArk always try to fix the balance between the class by classes. So in the future, some of the composition of the skill can be changed too. Also, this video might be applied or can be utilized by the KL server players, because the Soul Eater wasn't released on the global yet. And one more thing. The translation of the Soul Eater skill was actually done by me, so some of the skill translation can be different on the actual future release. And as the class itself hasn't been long since the release, so some of the composition, engraving, combat stat setting can be changed in the future. So watch this video with those considerations and use this video as your reference to your LostArk journey. Soul Eater is a newly released on July 19th, 2023 in KL server. As the class is recent released, most of the skill build is now on the research and some of the build is now on formalizing. As you can see right away, her identity consisted with two types, Soulstone, which can be utilized on using purple skills, and the boundary meters. Unlike the Full Moon Soul Eater used the possession meter as a class identity, Dark Moon Soul Eater will change those possession meter into boundary meters, which make you to transform yourself into Soul Plunder status. Also, the Full Moon Soul Eater's possession meter is toggled identity. Dark Moon Soul Eater's identity is non-toggled identity. That means when the boundary meter is filled up, she will transform herself automatically. Yep, automatically enters the Soul Plunder. During the Soul Plunder status, she will be disabled to using the purple skills, but during that uptime, she will get the great boost on her gray or more like light blue skills. In other words, Soul Plunder status will increase or give the great buff to her gray skills. Well, let's talk about those details later in this video. The class engraving I'm going to cover in this video is Kumekyonge, Boundaries of the Dark Moon. Boundaries or just Dark Moon might be more familiar to the global players. As I mentioned in the basic section, her core identity is a boundary meter, which disabling the possession meter, Reaper form of the Full Moon. And unlike the Full Moon Soul Eater has a break on the purple skills, I mean as a Soulstone, Dark Moon Soul Eater has more free hands than the Full Moon Soul Eater mechanic. But still, in my personal experience, you need to fill up the whole Soulstone meter and then use the purple skill. The reason is simple, fully filled Soulstone will automatically use the enhanced purple skill, which supply the boundary meters dramatically than the no-filled purple skills. After that, you need to fill up without resting in the whole skill cycle, because the boundary meter will slowly decreases as the time goes on. When you successfully fill the whole boundary meter, it will turn on the Soul Plunder status automatically. And this is your big fun time. More like throwing everything is more suitable expression. Well, let me show you more details on the core mechanic section. As Dark Moon Soul Eater has nothing to do with the specialization stat, her core combat stat is swiftness and critical. As the class engraving disable the identity supply and the specialization efficiency on the Reaper form and the Reaper skills, Dark Moon Soul Eater will show you a great efficiency while using the critical and swiftness as her main combat stat. First build on her is half critical and swiftness with hallucination gear set. With this build, she could almost have a 70 to 80% critical rate. Might be thinking, I think it's a little excessive, she's a swift class anyway. True, but there is reason for that. Most of the gray skill surge tripod has a damage increase on the last hit. So conclusion, high critical rate is good to use. Next build is most representative build on KL. Full critical with swiftness. In Korean expression, we call this build as a great efficiency on 딜머리 or 딜압축, like more better performance on compressed damage dealing. If you want to see the great or decent damage performance with the Darkmoon Soul Eater, full critical with Nightmare build is quite or slightly better than the hallucination build. But in order to see those efficiency, you are required higher level of cooldown gem. Reason is simple. Her main DPS skill, Lethal Spinning, can be used twice during the Soul Plunder activation if you have a higher level of Crimson Gem. Personally, I think to see the best efficiency with a Nightmare build, you need at least level 9 to 10 Crimson Gem for better performance than the hallucination. Not to mention high level of cooldown gem can do the great supplements and supplying your soul stone. But once you set this setting, you might reach the ceiling very easily. So conclusion, if you want to raise her as one of your main characters, do the Nightmare build. Unlike the other Swiftness build classes has some certain limitation on DPS performance, Darkmoon is really capable on huge and high damage performance. And personally I think Soul Eater, especially the Darkmoon Soul Eater, is quite easy to bounce back. More like easy to get back on track even if you miss some skills or your combos got missed or messed up on med raid. And also, she still has some build can be tested out. More like she has a lot of variation skill composition to choose from and has a variety of combat stat to build. And above all, like I said in the first, her damage value on the raid is quite decent. So you could feel some stylish combat style with decent damage performance. But as I mentioned in the first, her boundary meter slowly decreases as the gameplay goes on. So you might be a little picky on the first time when you are playing the Darkmoon Soul Eater. And of course, her transformation is not a toggled identity, so it will immediately or more like automatically activate the identity, sometimes when you aren't ready. In other words, you are forced to use the transformation on certain amount of time pass, and sometimes because of this, you can even miss some of your skill cycle because of the mechanics show up. Talking about the skill cycle, how skill management can be changed with your skill composition. This can be a little bit trickier too. But still, I think Darkmoon also has a great popularity among the KO players. I think the reason of the Darkmoon's popularity can be summarized like this. Not only she has a great performance with the damage value, but also she has a great or more like possible to do the stylish gameplay. And also those clinking sound is super cool to listen during the whole raid. Although she is using the critical and swiftness on her combat stat, like I mentioned, she has a great value too. So gameplaying through with the Darkmoon Soul Eater, your LostArk journey might be greatly satisfying. Darkmoon Soul Eater has a little soft requirements than the other classes, but in order to do some tight skill cycle or more like compress the damage, you need to choose between the certain level of swiftness stat or high level Crimson Gem. Just like the Igniter sorceries, if you want to make your Darkmoon Soul Eater can utilize a little spinning twice in the Soul Plunder activation, you need to fulfill these requirements. In my personal experience, using level 7 Crimson Gem will require you more than 1000. For level 10 Crimson Gem will require about 650 to 700 or higher swiftness stat. But of course, if you can afford a level 10 Crimson Gem, it would be great, but that will cost you a lot, right? So I recommend you to use the hallucination build on relic section and change to nightmare build when you decided to move up with your Soul Eater. But of course, the choice is yours. If you wish to give a hard support for your Soul Eater, then try to fill up the requirements for better damage performance. Core mechanic of the Darkmoon Soul Eater is Soulstone and Boundary Meter. Unlike the Full Moon Soul Eater's purple skill are the backbone of the damage, Darkmoon Soul Eater's purple skill have a great role in supplying the boundary meters. The most important of the Darkmoon Soul Eater mechanic is filling up the Soulstone full, and then using the purple skill for supplying the boundary meters. Normal attack of the purple skill will only fill up about 10%, but compared to the enhanced version, I mean fully filled purple skill will change the purple skill, or more like enhance the purple skill's identity supply. In short, fill up the soulstone full, and then use the purple skill to dramatically fill up the boundary meters. Simple enough. The more you use the powered up version of this purple skill, the more faster you will enter the soul plunder status. Sounds obvious, right? But as I mentioned in the first chapter, unlike the identity relying on classes gotta do some little tough climbing to filling up the identity, Darkmoon Soul Eater has not many things to concern about filling up the identity. Her skill composition can be categorized by the color of the skill: blue, purple, and the last, gray. Blue skill is a Mangja skill, skill of the dead. Maybe like in the Full Moon Soul Eater, blue skill is usually used as a stable soulstone supply. Purple skill is a Sashin skill, skill of the Reaper. Reaper skill is mostly used as a decent or additional damage dealing, and main role as a supplying the identity. And the last, gray skill is a Saigui skill, skill of the Assassin. Assassin skill is a backbone of the Darkmoon Soul Eater. Mostly, the gray skill is for the damage dealing. Gotta be honest, Darkmoon Soul Eater has a great variation of the skill build and composition. Right now, so most of the Darkmoon Soul Eater build code like N, and it can be categorized how much Assassin, Dead, Reaper skills on your skill composition. For example, if I use the 4 gray skill and 2 Dead and the 2 Reaper, it will be called as 4-2-2 build. Or if I decided to use a 5 Assassin, 1 Dead, 2 Reaper, it can be called as 5-1-2 build. But as I mentioned, Darkmoon Soul Eater has a great variation of the skill build right now, so I can't show you all of the skill build of the whole variation on this one build video. So I will show you the most representative and most efficient build of the Darkmoon Soul Eater, 4-2-2 build. 4-2-2 build is the most representative and most common build of the Darkmoon Soul Eater, and has a decent soulstone supply with a decent damage performance. Skill build of the Darkmoon can be summarized by this text box. For the better performance, leveling both gray and purple skill is highly recommended. And for the better damage performance, you need to leveling the 3rd tripod of the gray skill called Sashinjuryo. Gotta be honest, her tripod leveling has not much priority compared to the other classes or class engraving, but mostly in my personal experience, leveling the 3rd tripod is a priority. Gem priority also can be like this. As I mentioned in the previous chapter, you need to, well, in more Korean expression, you need to align the cooldown for better skill cycle. Most important cooldown gem is for the Guillotines and the Lunatic Edge. And the rest of the skill is for simple damage performance, so more like higher, the better. So I don't think it needs some detail explanation for that one. Awakening skill is a Deathbringer and the end. Mostly I think the Soul Eater, even the Full Moon Soul Eater, does use the Deathbringer for her Awakening skill. I think the reason is simple. Deathbringer will fill up the Soulstone, the end won't. So using Deathbringer for your Soul Eater is highly recommended for better skill cycle and better damage performance. I think the best advantage of the Darkmoon Soul Eater is coming from her mechanic. Due to a soft identity supply, she is really quite easy to bounce back, or more like get back on track easily, even missing some of the skills. Of course, if you miss everything, it can be a problem, but that's not happen often. And with that mechanic, she can also show you a great damage performance. I mean, it can be more than you expect. Variables and flexible also can be her advantage. She is really capable on flexibility on utilizing her skill, and you can choose your skill build whatever you want. More like it is possible to choose based on your preference. And talking about the flexibility on a skill cycle, her skill combo is not actually fixed. More like you can press the skill that was fully renewed. As I mentioned in the core mechanics section, her skill combo is quite easy to understand, or more like easy to manage on many rate. Her skill combo can be summarized like this: supply soulstone, use the purple skill, and when the soul plunder or boundary modes got active, pour everything on short identity uptime, and then repeats. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching everyone. And always, thanks for your big support. Hope this video was a little helped for your LostArk journey. And hope you do well with your Solitaire with this video. And of course, if you like my videos, hit the thumb for more upcoming infos. I'll come back with more useful infos in the next video.